All right, good morning. So first of all, where is Amy McKee? Is she still in the room? So when you were presenting, Amy, I made a word cloud of some of the words in the presentation around the Oncology Center of Excellence. And I'm just gonna read some that I wrote really big on my piece of paper. Patient outcomes, strategy and partnerships, community outreach, underrepresented groups in trials, and incorporating PFDD in trials and labeling. And I found myself sitting at the table, picturing myself as the woman in that scene from When Harry Met Sally, wanting to look over at Sally and say, I'll have what she's having. That was amazing. And Dr. Woodcock's presentation this morning around what FDA is doing related to the FDA modernization was very exciting as well. But I think the challenge for all of us today is to figure out how we bring all of that together to rare diseases. So I'm going to talk a little bit about our experience in the Duchenne community, as we've had some very promising therapies moving through our pipeline, some that have gone through review already, some that have not yet come through review, and what we as an organization and a community have done to develop some infrastructure, we hope, that not just our community but others could benefit from as products move through review, and to support sponsors who are developing these products. Much of this has been done in collaboration with the agency, and what we're pleased to see is that this is benefiting not our community but others as well, as their products move ahead of ours in the pipeline in some cases. So this is just a little bit about Parent Project Muscular Dystrophy. We're the world's largest organization supporting Duchenne and Becker muscular dystrophy. We focus on research, advocacy, care, and education, and we really work to attack Duchenne from every angle. Okay, so PDUFA 5 was really a game changer for our community, and it came at the perfect time for us in that our pipeline around therapy development was really heating up. So for many decades, we had really invested in the infrastructure around scientific research, basic science, and infrastructure for surveillance, investments into animal models, natural history studies. But in 2012 was really the time that we were really seeing our clinical trials begin to move into phase 2 studies, and a time when we could really embrace and wrap our arms around the engagement around PDUFA 5. And so we really took PDUFA 5 as a roadmap and began to innovate under that. And so some of the work that we've done since then is we've published a number of white papers really looking at PDUFA through the lens of our community. We wrote draft guidance on Duchenne for industry. We have published 4 patient preference studies, and there are 2 that are not yet published but are underway, one specific to gene therapies and one that is looking at global patient preferences, so that involves 8 different countries. We have an international registry actually that has over 4,000 patients with Duchenne, and we're now actually, that's 10 years old, so we're now actually modernizing our registry and expanding it, and now have a partner to look at how we bolt on a post-market surveillance component of that. We have a critical path initiative, and I'm sure many people in this room are familiar with that, but one of the challenges we have in Duchenne is there are a lot of different data sets that didn't all necessarily sync. And so we have an initiative where we have brought, in partnership with Critical Path, a number of these data sets together. They're academic, they're clinical, they're natural history data sets. Some are from industry-sponsored trials that have concluded, and are syncing these data sets together and developing disease progression models. We've developed testimony from our patient and clinical communities for advisory committee meetings, and have had really incredibly meaningful engagement with FDA around all of these efforts. And in February, we were delighted when the FDA finalized the guidance in Duchenne for industry, and much of the work we had done around our guidance and other engagement we'd had with FDA really served as foundational for that guidance. So to operationalize a lot of that, this is what we consider to be, and this is an eye chart, I realize, but this is available on our website, our capacities as far as the work that we have done and we can offer when we sit down with industry, as far as an infrastructure to partner with industry and work with our partners to support product development. One of the issues, however, is that a lot of this work has been done since many of the trials that are in development began. So if you're a sponsor that started working in our community more than 5 years ago, which many of our sponsors we're grateful to have been, some of our clinical trials have been going on more than a decade. You didn't have the benefit of this information when you first designed your protocol and your trial and approached our community. So one of the challenges we've had is, where does all of this fit in? Where's the context for this when your product goes before review? And how do we make sure that the people reviewing those products are privy to that data, not just the information, the data, because many of these studies are now validated, the registries are validated, the patient experience, patient preference studies are validated. If a sponsor chooses to have that be submitted with their submission, what is the process for it? Do the reviewers get to see it? When does it get considered? So those are some of the things that we've really wrestled with and have really been working to address. And I think we're really, as a community, this science of patient input has really moved very swiftly. And so we've been really working to innovate some of this infrastructure and processes along the way. So we have worked to address it in two ways. The first is, as a community, we worked with our congressional champions to introduce what we called the Patient-Focused Impact Assessment Act, and many of the patient organizations in the room helped to support this. It was passed in the Senate and then later became a key provision within 21st Century Cures, and I'll talk about that more in a second. We also then introduced what we call the Benefit Act, which is the Better Empowerment Now to Enhance Framework and Improve Treatments Act. We like acronyms. It's Washington. And we'll talk about those. Both bills were about how to integrate patient experience data and create formal processes for feedback to those who are developing this into regulatory review. We want to make sure that we're making an impact in the efforts that we are undertaking. PFIA, this is what PFIA was about. We wanted there to be some transparency around how patient experience data was being used within a product review. And so essentially what we wanted was a checklist that went along with the product review to understand how any patient experience data that was submitted was utilized or not utilized. So again, there's a feedback loop, so we know whether what we're doing is working or not, or we're just spinning our wheels. And then in addition, guidance for engagement between industry and advocacy partners, because we think that's increasingly important. So I love this story because our community really drove it. It passed, it was integrated in 21st Century Cures. FDA very swiftly implemented this, which we were thrilled about. And FDA's review and approval of Genentech's hemophilia A treatment for Hemlibra reflected that first review. So the first community to benefit was the hemophilia A community. So it just really underscores that as a rare disease community, we really are working to float all boats, and that the work we do together really is powerful and matters. So we, like many others, have really looked at the patient-focused drug development model as a really incredibly important, impactful model. We took that model, we worked with FDA to expand the model just a little bit in March. And in addition to having FDA come to the table, a lot of this data is being produced, and we really need to begin to address this. And then the other thing is within an advisory committee meeting, and I know there is not an advisory committee meeting held for every product, but in rare diseases we see them for a lot of our products that go before the committee, is that when patient experience data is a part of the submission in the package, that there be dedicated time during the advisory committee meeting to introduce it, that it not be incumbent on the OPH members to bring that data forward, that it's not a part of the patient community's testimony, but that this is real data, and there have been real social scientists developing it, and so that there be a segment of time, irrespective of what the sponsor is bringing forward and what the FDA is bringing forward, that relevant patient experience data be introduced. And so these are opportunities to really enrich what we're doing, and again underscore the importance, validity of patient experience data within our processes. And this is just an example of what right now a typical FDA advisory committee meeting looks like. And again, the open public hearing is a really important, incredibly valuable part of the experience, but really not the time to bring real data forward. I'm actually on my last slide, Julia. I'm never ahead of time. So anyway, we'd like to say thank you. We've come a very, very long way, but we also know we still have a very long way to go, and we're really excited about some of the frameworks that are being brought forward, and think that all of the ideas that are being discussed today will benefit all of us in this rare disease community. So thank you.